to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. You know, I'm excited that you're here this week. So here's the deal, right? The name of the show, Enlightenment of Change. And as soon as we hear that word change, what happens? We get a knot in our stomach. So to help you navigate, again, whatever change is happening in your life, whether you've chosen it or it's been thrust upon you, in the show notes, you will find my communication style assessment. 2 reports will be sent to your email. First report just spotlights your natural communication superpowers, how you show up naturally. Flip side, when you're communicating with people who are 180 degrees different than how you communicate, how's your message landing? So you get a secondary report with that lowest score. That's the one I really want you to dial in and be mindful of, because we always want to make sure, no matter who we're speaking with, our communication is spot on. That is how we can make change a heck of a lot easier. So again, my gift to you, link is in the show notes. Now, my quote today to set the stage for my guest and my conversation is by Jack Welch. And Jack says, good business leader create a vision, articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion. So business growth, I believe, doesn't happen by accident. And I love the quote because it really dials into the component that help an organization, right, grow and scale, or sustainable scaling, using clear and passionate leadership with a measure of accountability. And to me, that's the big word, the accountability of self and our teams. So who is my guest today? His name is Gui Costin. He's the founder and CEO of Dakota, a powerhouse in the investment service industry. Since its inception in 2006, Dakota has helped clients raise over $40 billion. At the heart of Gui's leadership is a singular, profound mission to be a mentor and foster career growth. He is a leader in sales and marketing, and his passion lies in educating investment firms on the processing and procedures they can implement to scale their business. So Gui, thanks so much for being on and sharing your zone of genius with us.
Thanks so much for having me. Thrilled to be on, Connie.
Yeah, a real pleasure. So tell me first, like, what is it that you do? Let's start with that.
So we have 2 businesses, but the primary focus is growing investment firms. And we do it in one of 2 ways. One, we do the work ourselves. So we have a 9-person sales team who covers the country and goes out and raises capital for the different funds that investment firms have. We work with about 6 different investment firms. And then we took the database that we built over about 15 years from 2006 to 2019 of investors across the country. And it's all institutional investors, all publicly available information. But as you can imagine, it's an enormous amount of information, and keeping all that up to date and keeping track of it, it's hundreds of thousands of contacts. And so what we've done is we've created a business where our other investment firms, instead of hiring us to sell for them, they can simply log into our database, go to the city that they're going to visit, whether it's Boston or San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Philly, Miami, what have you, and they can see all the potential institutional investors that they would want to call on. So
nice.
A little bit shorter way, we keep most investment firms over 1,100, their sales, CRMs up to date.
Nice. It's an awesome, it's so funny because now AI is all the rage, right? The technology is all the rage. In 2006, that you were kind of a visionary with that. What was the catalyst for you to say, hey, wait a minute, I think we can do?
You know, I'm so happy you brought that question up, Connie, because if you think about, there's one leverage point amongst any others that a salesperson can have, and it's a CRM. It's loading up all the information that who you call on, the meetings you've scheduled. Let's keep it that simple, so you can do rapid recall. Otherwise, as we all know, you're using an Excel spreadsheet, a yellow pad of paper, a sticky note, right? And so if you've done 100 meetings in the past 90 days or 180 days, and then you want to go do all your follow-up, or time's gone on, where do you find all that information, right? Salesforce was invented in 1999. I started using it back then, and it just managed my life as an individual salesperson. So naturally, when we started the business, I was using it to manage the business. And then I had to convince, quote unquote, my teammates, if you will, to use it as well. And it's been such a grand slam because it really 10X's your time. Because if I called on you and did a meeting with you 4 months ago, right? But then you multiply that times 10 of all the different people I met with 4 months ago, your brain can't remember all that information. You need to go in with 1 or 2 clicks and see who you all met with, so then you can do quick follow-up.
I love it. It's about efficiency. The more we can get done, the more opportunity we have, which means the more results we're going to get on the back end. But that's brilliant that you adopted Salesforce and then you kind of leveraged it to create your own database, which is, I mean, that's why Amazon is so darn, right? He's a database. That's why he has a bazillion people, right, from all over the world. But it started with building a database from textbooks, and then he perfected that system and then went to the next, and then he created scalability because of the database. So I just love that connection that you made. That's pretty freaking smart, dude, you know?
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I love it. All right, next question. How have you accomplished raising 30 billion? Yes, people, billion, not million, $30 billion. How have you done it?
Two words, sales process.
Mm.
And the only way you can effectively, or there's kind of two ways to do it: sales process or highly opportunistic, which means you would have to really just raise a lot of money in very large amounts. So 400 million here, 300 million there, 800 million, you know what I mean? That's not
Yeah.
as realistic for the broader base of the investment community with over 12,000 investment firms. And the way that you do it, it's an incredibly competitive business. And if you think about the buyers, if you will, think of your financial advisor, think of the CIO of a college endowment, think of a CIO of a state pension fund, a teacher's pension fund, an employee pension fund, and New York Common, if you're using New York State as an example. They have people like us calling on them every single day wanting to get a meeting. And so they probably get 200 to 300 meeting requests a day. So it's highly competitive. There's obviously a lot of rejection. So if you set up a sales process and you bring the team in two-way process, it takes away a lot of that emotion and it makes the whole process very consistent. And that's the key, is consistency, and sales process does that.
Yeah, and once we create the sales process that it's easily duplicatable, then I can make it part of my habits, and then I'm not overthinking everything, and then that takes the emotion out of it, that takes the fear out of it, because we have and it's a good habit. Let me comment that it's a good habit. You haven't formed a bad habit as long as the sales process is coherent, logical, and again, it's that rinse and repeat mentality. So I love it. Yeah, I'm all about the sales process. So I agree 100%. All right. So I wrote a book, actually, The Easy Sales
Oh, I love it.
Process, 7 Steps to Sales Success. So you're talking my language there, brother from another mother, right?
Let's go. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. All right. So what does it take, or what do you see that it takes for really a good salesperson in the world of investments? What does it take to get good at it?
So it's well, there's four things in my book, meaning the true book that I've written called The Dakota Way. There's four core principles. But so, first off, you have to set clear expectations with your boss. So portfolio managers of investment firms, I love them to death. They've made my career, right? But there can be a disconnect between what they believe you should be raising for them and then what you should be. So it's like this gulf. One, you need to set expectations. So you and I agree on exactly what success looks like in my day-to-day activities. And then we have to have a plan each week that I'm going to report to you against my results. Two, we have to establish the TAM, right? So success comes down to, are you calling on the right buyers? That's a key component of it. I call it the TAM. Then do you have a systematic approach for calling on those right buyers? We do it through city scheduling. I'm going to Boston for a day of meetings. I want to book out 5 meetings. Three, and here's the killer, is point number 3. It's very pedestrian, what I just described. It's a grind, sending cold emails, booking meetings, sending 30 emails, getting 2 responses. So, but you have to do that. You have to convince yourself you're a professional meeting setter-upper. However, once you get in the meeting, you're now pitching a very sophisticated, complicated product. You now have to become a master messenger. So you have to bring this very complicated investment story to life so the person across the table from you can get it. And I'm not going to get into the art of it, but there's a complete art. So one side of the coin, professional meeting setter-upper. Other side of the coin, sophisticated storyteller. Then the fourth component is the CRM. You need to be able to log the meetings you've done in your CRM so you can do rapid recall of all the past stuff that you've done and you're not looking all over the place. And if you can do that, so it's those 4 things: setting expectations, focusing on your TAM, becoming a master messenger, housing all that information in a CRM, and just keep repeating the process.
Yeah, again, it's the rinse and repeat. So I have to ask you a question, and I don't know if you see this, but I see this all the time. We've been told you have to be a good storyteller. I agree with that. But I often see, though, as people go into their story, they get lost in their own story and they're disconnected from the client or whoever the person is in front of them. Do you see that happening a lot, or have you remediated that with your training? I'm just curious because still see it a lot.
In our business, 100%. Do you want to know why? The people that you're with normally that are pitching are analysts, right? They work for the investment firm. They're not salespeople. So I'll give you how you answer. And I was taught this in 2005, short answer first. So if you ask an analyst, hey, what do you think Visa, give me the investment thesis on Visa, the stock. I mean, they could go on for 30 straight minutes and not miss a beat, right? It's like, no, 2 minutes, answer the question, short answer first. So now you can pause and they can ask questions, then it gets into a conversation. So the simple answer is, please, short answer first, no monologues.
Yeah, almost think of an executive summary, right? You're giving them the executive summary, and then they're going to ask questions of the hot buttons for them, right? That whoever that person is, like, yeah, it should be about the client in front of you, not about your story and all the research you did, right? So I love that. Thank you. That's such a executive summary. That's the answer, right? Keep it simple.
Yeah,
it works, right? The KISS principle.
But you really just kind of unearthed the most important point about that is don't give them everything in the answer. Let them select then what they want to come back with.
Right. Because now you know what the hot button is or what's top of mind for them as whatever the situation is. There's probably several glitches within their situation. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking to the sales rep. There's a need there. Now, if you start going blah, 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 and you dump on them, they're going to say, I have to think about it because you've given them too much information. They can't process it that quickly. It's going to debilitate them to do nothing. That's craziness, right? So that executive summary, I love it. I love it. I love it. Next
and then
question. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go
please.
ahead.
No, you go.
Because now, salespeople, we're told you have egos. Do you think ego is necessary for a salesperson? Curious.
I think I have a bunch of lacrosse playing, boys in college and now out of college. And my one son's a defenseman, the youngest, he's a junior. And this is the point of the story is amnesia. He has insane amnesia, like all the great quarterbacks in the NFL. They don't remember the play before. They don't remember the interception. They don't remember why they got scored on, right? So I think at the end of the day, yes, ego, I'd say confidence and preparedness gives you confidence. So preparedness, but also I think kind of not dwelling on why someone's not getting back to you or, all of that. If you can just keep moving forward, I think is the number one thing. And then ego kind of to me says confidence. How do you get confidence? The number one thing, if anybody's listening about any product, is know the knowables. That will get your ego and your confidence through the roof. Know the knowables about your product because you can't know everything, especially when you're younger getting into a situation, but know the knowables.
Yeah, it's interesting because my kids played hockey. One played hockey in college. So it's the same thing when they were little. They would say, they'd come home, oh, my defense did this. Right. I have two goalies too. Yes, the most expensive part of the hockey sport. But we'd get
hardest as a mom. That's the hardest as a parent. Goalie parent, no harder position.
Yeah, because the light goes off every time they make a mistake, right? And they score. But here's the funny part. They were younger, right, and developing their skills. We get in the car, and what would they do? They deflect. My defenseman, this happened, that broke down. And I'd say, are you perfect? No. Are you the coach? No. I said, so all you could control is you. Here's my question. That goal that went in, whatever it was it a good goal? Yeah, no, that was a good goal. All right. How about the second goal? Was that a good goal? No, I should have had that one. Tell me what you did wrong. Oh, my angle was off, whatever, right? So we dissect it, and I'd say, that was a good goal. What do you mean? They scored. I go, but you learned from it, right? And I think that's what you're trying to say too, is the ego isn't, I'm great and the rest of my team sucks. It's, wait a minute, I made a mistake, or that didn't go as I thought it was going to go. What could I have done differently? And I think that's where we park the ego, learn from it, but we have to show, and that builds confidence, I think too, right?
There's no doubt. And I think what you're saying is check your ego at the door. And be a lifelong learner, right? Be willing to learn from your mistakes. Anything that could happen. Everyone's opinion has merit, right? Just listen, be a good listener. Sometimes you're not going to take all the advice that you get, but I couldn't agree more there.
Yeah. Funny. It's just funny because, we all do have a little bit of an ego.
Yeah.
All right. Now, my next question, how do you humble yourself and really become that person that actually becomes the closer, right? Again, with that ego piece of it. But how do we approach people humbly? You can't be a braggadocious jerk, right?
Right. I think you have to have intense compassion and understanding of what your buyer, if you will, what your potential, your prospect is, of what their needs are and what they're listening for. And you only can get into that through Q&A and build a relationship and asking questions. If you jump in too fast talking about your product and not, really understanding what their needs are, what their problems are. And remember, every good product solves a problem. The bigger the problem, the better the product, the more expensive the product, the more profitable the product. Think biotech and, curing cancer, right? You start to think about drugs or chips like NVIDIA, right? Whatever's solving a big problem. And so in our world of probably selling something that might be a lot less than that, there's always a problem that your product solves for. But you have to ask questions and you have to really understand where they're coming from before you dig into the product and getting to know them. So I think it's problem, question until it becomes so abundantly clear where then you're going to come in to start the discussion about your particular solution.
Yeah, and I love that, and I agree. And when I get to my step with is the one listening, it's funny, Guy, I never had listening as a separate step in my process, and then after meeting and observing and talking with salespeople, I'm thinking, wow, they really aren't listeners. They ask their question, they go, and they write a note or two, and then they're on to their next question. And I was like, oh my God, they missed a question in there. They should have asked. That's the act of listening. When you have the follow-up question, you can't prepare for it. It shows up when you're present in front of the person. So I love that. Problem, question, problem, question, maybe follow-up question, right? And that's how we dig in. So I believe that we should be listening 70% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time, because, and one other thing I wanted to comment on, and I share this with every team I coach or teach, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. To me, every young person especially should be reading that book. But his 5th habit says, seek to understand before being understood. And he says it much more eloquently, but that's exactly what you just said. It's that principle of shut your mouth, ask the question, but then actively listen to ask those. Because when you start asking the follow-up questions, now we're digging into the root of the problem. And now you get a home run when you make your recommendation because you're spot on. It's so clear for the client. And I guarantee the other sales reps perhaps aren't doing that.
They're going to guide you. By asking the
100%.
questions, they'll guide you to the answer you should be delivering when it's your turn to go.
Yeah, and it should be obvious, right? The solution
Right, it should be obvious,
at the
exactly.
end. It should. I always tease Guy. I say there should be like a light from the heavens going, ta-da! Like this is what the client needs, right? It should be that crystal clear to you, so you're not, forcing the square peg in the round hole, as they say.
Yeah. Now this is the old head on young shoulders. It's hard to do. Sometimes a lot of times I'll go through the Q&A like that, problem, solution, with the whole question. All right. You know what? This is not a great fit. I don't think our product is really a great fit for what you're looking for. No, Geeky. No, actually it is. I just want to, well, as I was listening to you, I don't really see that you guys are in a position to be raising capital right now where, you don't really need this. This is not how your relationships. And sometimes they then sell you and you don't have to do anything, but you're being authentic. You're like, hey, from what I heard, I don't think so.
Doing the right thing, right, Guy?
Yeah.
That's really what you just doing the right thing for the client, right? And our job really, I think we have the best job in the world as salespeople because we get to help people every day. Who gets to say that, right? So it's kind of cool. They have a problem, we have the solution. Show up and share it logically. Let's talk about culture for a minute. Why do you think the culture within the organization is really important for the salesperson and maybe even the sales leader, more importantly?
It's a loaded question that I could go on forever about. So culture is how you treat, this is again, one person's opinion. Culture is how you treat people. And if you think what you want in the sales, just the sales organization, doesn't matter if you're a 2-person sales organization, 5 or 10, you want to come in the office and have low agita, high performance. And you want to be focused on executing the sales process, not having all this agita internally with the boss, everyone unfocused, not knowing what they're doing, the boss dropping, one-liners or passive-aggressive behavior or thinking they're being funny when they're not. And then it gets in the salesperson's head. You need each person at the company, right? Jamie's been doing all of the videoing here on our video team. So I keep referencing him, but it's like, if I'm always messing with those guys or saying stuff or making a flip comment or doing anything like that, it can get them unfocused, right? So culture and how you treat people is truly the most important thing of any organization, a team, a company, a family. Like, how you use your words is everything, because you need low agita, high performance. And if you have the opposite, which is high volatility, you get lower performance. It's no fun to be at work. And then the death knell is your best people leave. Now you have to train a whole new group of people. And those best people knew your product better than anyone. They had a relationship with the customers. And now you're having to replace that. People don't like put a price tag on what it costs to replace people who know your product and your company and way of doing things. I guarantee you it's 50 times more than people would actually put a price on it. So keeping your best people, making people enjoy coming to work, create that low agita, high performance type culture.
Yeah, I love it. And I remember, 40 something years ago when I started in insurance, I was a kid, Guy, and I met with a business owner, and I guess I always had a business mentality. I didn't realize, in my early 20s that extent, but I was so curious as to this person's business. I got to know him, his family, the daughters, they were little girls really well. And I didn't have kids at the time. I love kids. So I was me, right? I showed up as me. Well, fast forward, I sold my first $1 million life policy. Now, this was back in the 80s. That was a big deal, right? So I come in the next day on cloud nine. I go into my sales manager and I said, guess what? And what? And I said, I sold $1 million policy. And I'm thinking, let's announce it to everybody in here, all the other 43 reps. He looked at me and he goes, why didn't you sell 2 million? I was like,
There you go.
Hated him. Can I tell you, I hated him. And just as an aside note, when I was training, we got in the car and I didn't like something he did. I didn't know why, because the numbers didn't make sense what he was doing. And I'm a numbers person. So we got in the car and I said, I don't know what you did, because I was there maybe 2 weeks. I said, but I don't want that business. Give it to one of the other reps. Screaming at me, you idiot. You're never going to make it. You're a moron. All the way back to the office. I lasted 5 years, because back then, you have to remember, I'm sharing my age here, but back then you had to stay with the company 5 years. If you didn't, you were a jumper and then you wouldn't find another job. So I stuck it out the 5 years, but I'll tell you, I ran like hell at the end of that, because he was horrific. So don't do that to my leaders listening. Do what Guy is saying. Like, can you be nice,
Yeah. And it's the kindness is everything, right? And in a situation like that, again, that's the classic, how you just crush someone's spirit. Right? Because then he had the opportunity to have you love him, right? And he chose another path, which caused you to hate him. And it was just on the words he used. That's all it was. Just on the words he used.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? If you think about what it is, it's all the words that you use. And everyone remembers that one word or that one line that someone said. Right?
42 years later.
Exactly. 42 years later. That's all you need to know. I was a golf coach. I played college golf, and I was the golf coach for our high school team for 9 years. When the last 4 years, my son was on the team. They said, well, what do you think like your secret to success was? And I said, well, in golf, it's very simple as a coach. It's not what you say, it's what you don't say. And I always said each day I had 5 seconds of coaching, and that was it. I got them unbelievable uniforms, and I was incredibly positive, and all I really wanted them to do was focus on their own game when they're on the course. That was it. Not another word. Because every little word that you might say, now it's in their brain. They're on the 6th hole. They're like, I can't believe coach just said that. It's me. It's like, no. This is about you being successful. And I'm stepping out of the way. So I just got them great uniforms and did my 5 seconds of coaching, was very positive, and let them just be them. And the kids had amazing success.
And the thing is, and this is with salespeople too, after you observe them, like, let them do their jam, right? Do it, then observe it, and then go back. And this, when I do my field coaching, I'll say to the salesperson, what could you, or the coach, what could you have done? What did you do well? I always start with that. And then if you had a do-over, let's make believe, what would you have done differently? They don't need me to tell them. They know exactly where they glitched. They didn't phrase it right. What my body language, they know exactly. And I go, my work here is done. They know how to self-assess. People know. It's like you go in and you go, how are your numbers? They know their numbers. Let's talk about how do we get your numbers up, not let's talk about the numbers of what was, right? Let's scale it, let's grow it. And I think with coaches, leaders, they dig into the wrong thing. So maybe it's their ego they need to park, Guy, right?
Oh, 1 billion%. Oh my goodness. Yes. And their lips too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Right.
What metrics, we talked about the CRM before, but what metrics do you feel sales leaders should measure, and what do you measure, right?
The only things that matter most. So that's all we do. You got to measure the only things that matter most. In our software business, two things matter most daily: first time demos set up, re-engage demos. That's it. And because what ends up happening is if we get those, we know there's a waterfall effect. After our account executives get the demo or they're so good because we've coached them up and they're very versatile. There's a waterfall effect of closing, about 25 to 30% we close.
Nice.
So, but the hard part is sending the 30 emails to get 2 meetings and making the team understand that that's the most important thing at the company. I mean, like Jamie and I wouldn't be shooting here with you right now if our BDRs aren't setting up first time demos and re-engage in size and making sure. And then I don't criticize when they do, 3 and 2 on a day versus 15 and 12, right? I never make a comment. I say, great job. If they do 4 and 3, awesome work. Just always reminding them because it's the hardest job. It's the most emotional job of the company. But those metrics, you have to figure out what numbers truly matter most. And there only can be 1, 2, or 3. You can't have so many numbers, right? And then,
Well, isn't it just like when you're selling to the person, if you go in with 10 options, they're not going to do anything. It's overwhelm, and they didn't what? So if you can narrow it down to that 2 or 3 options, keep it real simple, real dialed in. Now all of a sudden there's such clarity that they're ready to pull the trigger faster. We can move the sales process faster, right? By having that clarity. So it's the same thing with our teams. If we can have that clarity of no, I only want you to do these 2 things. Now we're giving them something to focus, double down their efforts on, and they're going to get better so much faster. That's really what you're saying, right? Did I understand that correctly?
100%.
Yeah. What metrics other than first time meetings should we be looking at, especially in that fundraising realm?
So this is a little looser metric, but I think the key thing before the first time demo, I mean, those are the 2 numbers that we care about the most from a results perspective. You have to make sure you're calling on qualified buyers.
Yeah.
So if you think about that as a sort of qualitative metric as much as a quantitative metric, a lot of people, we call it, we grow apples and we sell to apple buyers. We don't call on orange buyers to try to convince them to buy apples. We're not in the convincing business. So one big metric if you're selling apples, are you calling on apple buyers? Now we've gotten way past that point, but that is a core principle of Dakota. It's on our website where we have 14 core principles. And in the beginning, I had to make sure I said that because I'd say, okay, how was the meeting? And I banned great meeting. Can't come back and say we had a great meeting. I said, because I want to know what happened in the meeting. What's the current status? What's the next step? I also need to know that there's an end zone, right? I don't want to be playing football with missing 2 end zones. Okay, we need to score points. All right, don't come back to me, please. It's not good for you. So I'm not saying so much come back to me, but don't come back to me, which is really a reflection on you because you're the salesperson. You're not here to please me. I want you to grow your career. And we have to have a field that has end zones. And we have to understand that we're calling on apple buyers if we have apples. You can't believe. I mean, all these software businesses have people in the middle called qualifiers. We don't have qualifiers. We go in like we know before we call that they're an orange buyer, they're an apple buyer. You know what I mean? And so I think, right, in terms of like that, I just can't emphasize because then it just becomes reps against qualified buyers. And then what are the reps you're looking? What are the results from the reps? First time demos, re-engage demos.
It boils right back down to those 2 strategic approaches, right? We again, it's got to be logical. It has to be duplicatable, and it has to be easy. Not that our job should be easy, but they shouldn't be a struggle to achieve whatever the objective is. And that's what you're talking about. You're just dialing it down to make it simple so they can rinse and repeat, grow the skill. And now, we're hitting it out of the park for sure. Last question, but this I'm really curious about. Face-to-face or Zoom meetings, have you found, because you do a lot of analytics on the back end, have you found that there's a difference, whether it's Zoom or face-to-face, Because face to face, sometimes if I have to travel across the country, I'm sitting in a plane, right? The windshield time, if you will. But what is your analytics showing? I'm curious.
Face to face all day long, twice on Sundays. Okay, so let's just start with that. I want to be very emphatic that I will never do Zoom over an opportunity to get face to face. That being said, there are economics involved and
Yeah.
there is time involved. If you have 5 meetings in LA and they're all legitimate meetings because you've qualified them, and then you're going to go for 3 days and you have 15 meetings, then go. If you picked LA for 3 days and you booked one meeting and it's a great meeting, then you convert to Zoom, even if it's a great meeting. Now, if it's a massive anchor meeting but that's a lot of money, time, energy, and everything for one meeting, you can get away with Zoom. However, my team has come back to me over the past since COVID and said face to face is a joke relative to Zoom. I mean, it's like literally you walk in, oh my gosh, Forey, oh Rob, hey Nick, everything done. 15 minutes. All right, we're good. Let's go. We're buying. Zoom, it's like getting to know everybody on the phone. No, like if we were on Zoom right now, if I was like I'm here at my anchor desk, I have no phone right here. I mean, half the time I'm still sneaking in. Oh my God, my kid just texted me. Oh, what did you say? Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Like you
We're
can't do that
distracted.
right? You can't do that face to face. Like you have everyone, you're in a conversation, you're building a relationship, you're seeing the whites of their eyes. So face to face all day long, twice on Sundays. And then of course, Zoom for efficiency. You know what I mean? It's never
Time
Zoom
and
will
place.
right. So yeah, but also economics play a big role in that and
Yeah.
time, right? So I get it. But I mean, we've had so much success. We know we do city scheduling. That's our game. That's our sales process. Every single BDR has to have 5 cities they're scheduling at any given time. And every single day at 7:45 to close out the 7:45 around 7:49, each of the 14 have to go around in 30 seconds. Say, okay, I'm scheduling for LA on November 5th. Blah, blah, blah. They do their 5 cities. And if I hear 4, remember, I'm the CEO because we have everybody on the call. I'll call the AE there. I'm like, he only said 4 cities. It's like, gotcha. I'm like, because we're listening, right? Because we're letting them down if we're not making them adhere to the sales process. So that's how seriously we take that. And the more we can get the AEs in an airplane, in a car, on a train to get face to face, the higher the results are. And they're by a pretty dramatic margin.
Yeah, and I love that. And it's funny because you mentioned accountability in there. That's the word that popped into my head. If they are only 4, don't have to embarrass the person. You call the leader and say they only mentioned 4, what's going on? Hold you accountable, right? Because you're saying the system works. Accountability on you, but it's also an accountability on the leader, and it's also an accountability on that salesperson. Now, there could be a reason why we should understand that. If that situation happens over and over and over again, what's going on, right? But we have to hold people accountable, and I don't think we're doing a real good job of that in our world lately, right? We're letting people off the hook, and you're hired to do a job. I'll give you all the tools to do it, but you got to do the job that we're expecting you to do. Otherwise, we're wasting time and money, and we're wasting each other's time and money, and that's not cool, right? We have to be a little bit efficient there. So yeah, anything else that was my last question. We're out of time, but do you have anything else to add for the people listening to the show that you think we didn't hit that you would like to include?
Kind of the one thing I would say as a follow-up to that, and I guess I can make this a universal comment, as a sales leader, you're messing with people's lives and their careers. And you have an obligation to help them grow their careers and get what they want out of life, whether you like that or not. That's the job of a sales leader. And so and each person's a little bit different. You can have your sales process, which is number one, but every person's a little bit different. Messing with them, getting in their head, not setting clear expectations, not setting them up for success, you're just damaging their career. And you have a really big responsibility as a leader, I think, and you have to take that responsibility seriously. And I think there's a lot of information out there, kind of that people, like including your podcast, that people can listen to and focus on to get what they need to help people grow their careers.
And I know you're passionate about that in your bio, right? It has that you're a mentor. Most CEOs don't put that in, right? I'm good at whatever the skill is for the job, but that mentorship, I believe now, especially you're much younger than me, but at this point in my career, I feel that mentorship, it's the paying, if that's the legacy. It's not, yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Financially, we leave a legacy, but we don't often think of the skill that I can impart on someone else so that now they can thrive, that's legacy. And I think it is important that leaders out there, it's not just about earning the money. Yeah, it's nice being a leader. You can override on everybody, yippee-ki-yay. It's about how can you help that person? Yes, it'll put more money in your pocket, but it'll help them thrive long-term to build their family, create productive kids, like you were saying with your boys playing the sports and everything, being a team player. We have to instill this in our leaders today. To not, you were good at sales. Are you good as a sales leader? If you're not, then go back to sales, right? But we have a responsibility in a leadership position. I really do believe that. And I love that you're passionate about that component, because I think we forget about it because it's always about the result, right? The money, but we can make more money if we all show up together in a unified, really deliberate way, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, back at you. Thank you so much. So everyone, here's the deal. If you need more Gui in your life, go to Dakota.com. I promise I'll put all the links in the show notes. If you have a question specific for Gui, it's Gui@Dakota.com. Again, I will put that in the show notes. You had a book, you said, Gui, that you published. Yes?
Yep. It's called Millennials Are Not Aliens is book 1, and soon to come out is book 2, which is the Dakota Way, which is our 4 core sales principles.
Will all that be on the website, Dakota.com,
Yes.
that they could find
Yep.
the books? Love
Yes.
it. Love the millennials. Say the millennial one again.
Millennials Are Not Aliens. And it's a book on how to sell to that generation, how to think about connecting with that generation.
They're bigger than the baby boomers. So everybody listening, we have to tap into that energy and understand what they're looking for, because it's majorly different than the boomers that came before them. Gui, thank you so much for sharing your zone of genius, and keep doing what you're doing. It's you're doing good things out there, and I loved meeting you. So thanks for being on.
Love meeting you too. Your energy is infectious, Connie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I hope you will join me. Oh, my pleasure. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover, no matter where you are in change, whatever that means to your life, career, sales career, et cetera, or business. I hope my guests and I shared some insight, ideas, and tips for you to take and implement today. Information is a beautiful thing. If you do nothing with it, it's just information sitting in your brain. As soon as you put it into place and into play and you start working with it, I promise you, magic happens on the back end. It's not by accident. You just got to take the first step forward. So Gui gave you a lot of ideas to implement today. And the other thing is, Christmas is coming, guys. Please buy the books, put them in someone's stocking stuffer who is in sales. You can change their life in 2025. We're recording in 2024, FYI. So my future people, 2025, read the books and make sure you implement the ideas. Gui, thank you again for being on. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I truly am inspired that you follow me and you tune in weekly for my guests and I to have our conversations. And I truly hope that it helps you move the needle on whatever you're trying to create in your job, career, sales, etc. I love you all. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.